Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to continue to be talking about what is now Tropical Storm Ida, but it's expected to become Hurricane Ida, and it's likely to become a major hurricane as it makes landfall somewhere along the Louisiana coast. And this is a forecast satellite image, which shows a very powerful hurricane. I will show this model run at the end of the video, but this is a scenario we could be seeing a large, dangerous, major impact hurricane or storm making landfall somewhere along the Louisiana coast, and is likely to cause major impacts of storm surge, wind, and rain. So let's get into the video. This is the current National Hurricane Center outlook for the next 2 days. You can see here we have Tropical Storm Ida. This is going to be the focus of this video, and then we have two areas out here. One has got a medium chance of developing, one has got high chance of developing, but these two areas currently aren't really going to be any sort of threat to land. So we're not going to be talking about those for now, but we should watch them just in case. You never know what could happen. But if we look at Tropical Storm Ida, you can see it has winds of 45 miles an hour, a central pressure of 1,001 millibars, and is moving northwest at 15 miles an hour, and is about to make landfall at western Cuba. There we go. So this is the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center for Tropical Storm Ida. You can see at the last advisory, it was a relatively small area, though we did have thunderstorms extending quite far out like that, but expect it to increase kind of in size. As you can see, we have a tropical storm warning across much of western Cuba here, so expect it to increase in kind of size as it moves forward, as it strengthens, but we do have a tropical storm warning parts of western Cuba, where we could see some heavy flooding rains, potentially some strong gusty winds, and maybe even a small amount of storm surge. But the moment it crosses Cuba, it is in the very warm waters of the Gulf. I'm about to talk about that in a minute, and it's going to go over some very warm waters, like I just said, as it tracks this way, and expected to strengthen and make landfall somewhere around here as a major hurricane, as you can see showed by the M. That means a major hurricane category 3 or stronger, and on this specific forecast, it's expected to make landfall as 115 miles an hour. There are a few indications it could be even higher than this, and in the discussion of the forecast, National Hurricane Center mentioned that this was on the lower side of kind of model guidance. But you can see after it makes landfall, it's expected to kind of make a turn to the north inland and quickly weaken. But I do need to make this clear. As you can see here, the cone is not showing where the impacts are, this forecast cone. It is only showing where the center will be. When we have such a large hurricane like this, it is possible and it is likely that impacts will be extending far out from the cone, and you can see, as we can see here, we have hurricane watches all the way along the Louisiana coast, as well as on the Mississippi coast and parts of the Alabama coast as well. That's where we could see hurricane conditions in these areas, and then where we have that tropical storm watch across parts of the Alabama coast, that's where we could see tropical storm force conditions, and expect some of these to get upgraded to a hurricane warning as we head closer to the time. So now we are going to be talking about the surge. You can see here we have 2 to 4 feet of surge on parts of western Louisiana. Then going a bit further east, parts of central Louisiana coast expect to see 4 to 7 feet of surge. Further east in kind of southeast Louisiana, 7 to 11 feet of surge into also parts of Mississippi as well. So even though, as you can see, Louisiana is where it's expected to make landfall, we're going to have a lot of water on this side of the storm, the east side of the storm, pushing water into other areas of the coastline as well. As you can see, Mississippi, also 4 to 7 feet of surge in the eastern section of Mississippi, and then parts of Alabama and Florida, 3 to 5 feet of surge, and also kind of where New Orleans is, Lake Pontchartrain, 3 to 5 feet of surge as well. But really, we're going to have a lot of water kind of being pushed into this area, and particularly if it gets funneled into this kind of delta area, the Mississippi Delta, we could see some significant threats from that as well. Now talking about the rainfall, another serious storm in terms of rainfall. You can see widely in this orange region, we're likely to see kind of 6 to 10 inches of rain. That's definitely a lot, up to 200 millimeters more, actually, sorry, nearer to 250 millimeters. That is a lot of rain, likely to cause some severe flooding in places. And then in parts of southeastern Louisiana, we have 10 to 15 inches of rain, and then we have a small area which is currently forecast to get around 15 to 20 inches of rain in places. That this could possibly go up, and we do actually have a moderate warning of flash flooding from the Weather Prediction Center around where the red contour is. And now Now we can take a look at the storm on satellite. This is the infrared satellite. As you can see now, we have lots of thunderstorms kind of firing around this into parts of Cuba. There's Cuba there, by the way. But you can see if we outline these, they're kind of displaced slightly to the north of the center. But you can see we kind of had some older thunderstorms from last night, which are kind of out here in this kind of secondary band of thunderstorms, and then we've recently had convection trying to kind of fire up a bit further to the center, though slightly displaced to the north. The center is somewhere around kind of here in between Cuba and the Cayman Islands, but as you can see here, there's not as many thunderstorms on the western edge, and that's because it's kind of getting sheared off to the side with kind of dry. It's kind of being sheared a little bit, affected by wind shear, and then these thunderstorms also being affected by kind of dry air on this edge, which is leading them to kind of decay a little bit. That's why we don't have storms really on this edge at the moment, though convection is kind of starting to organize to the north of the center and closer to the center, and I expect once this kind of passes over Cuba, we're going to likely have convection really wrapping around fully. Now, let me just quickly refresh this page. But this is the visible imagery. The sun is just rising now over the storm. You can see we can just about make out Cuba there on the end of the run. And you can see there we have lots and lots of thunderstorms. This looks much healthier on the visible satellite imagery than it does on the infrared. Really big, lots of thunderstorms kind of firing in it. And if we try and locate the center, you can kind of see winds kind of like this, kind of just below the storm, and then we can't really see the surface winds, but there is a mid-level center around here somewhere, and we're guessing that you can just kind of about to see the rotation in here, that the low-level center is probably somewhere in this blue box region. That's where the National Hurricane Center has it, and it's possible that the mid-level center is maybe around here, so they could be slightly displaced at the moment, and we'll have to watch to see what happens if they kind of connect up, which is likely to happen maybe before, but most likely after Cuba. That's when we're likely to see the rapid organization. But right now, it's still a relatively weak storm. It's only 45 miles an hour winds. But if these two centers kind of manage to couple together, we could see a stronger storm starting to form. And it's possible that instead of moving on top of one another, maybe a new center forms under the mid-level one, something like that. But the storm is organizing as we speak, where it's over warm waters, which I'm about to talk about. This is the ocean heat content. The reason why the storm is going to be so dangerous, storms but kind of here, by the way, right now, is because it's moving over something called the Atlantic, just called the loop current. This is kind of the storm's track right now, and you can see this is what's called ocean heat content, and that is kind of the depth of the warmth of the ocean. And you can see kind of right over this small area we have a peak off the scale, kind of near 175 kilojoules per centimeters cubed. And you can see that's at the top of the scale. And let me just move on to the next tab. You can see here kind of the currents as well, what I'm talking about, the loop current. And you can see here we have kind of the water is kind of traveling around here. That's our loop, like this. But you can see that along kind of inside that loop we have very, very warm waters, like I just said, kind of nearing the top of the scale. And because of the storm's track, let me get a better color for visibility, because of the storm's track kind of like this, expected to kind of move over these very warm waters, and models have trended slightly slower in the past kind of couple of days. And what this could mean is that it spends some time over this water and manages to rapidly intensify, which is a worst case scenario. So I think I mentioned this earlier, but we have a recon plane going into this storm now, into Ida. You can see here, oh, this is actually interesting data. If I click on this and I zoom in, you can see that we have now a definitely well-defined center, so with winds coming in like this, and then winds coming in like this. I mean, it's sorry. We have a well-defined center now. Winds coming in like this. Winds coming in like this. So this is definitely a sign that this storm is strengthening. And you can see we have kind of a rather symmetric wind field in this direction. I'm not sure if it'll be the same on the other direction, but we have similar kind of strength winds on either side. And that's interesting, actually, because where the mid-level center was kind of showing up on satellite somewhere in this region, it's obvious now obvious now that the low-level center has now formed somewhere below that, and so this means that the storm is likely organizing, and I expect it's probably going to steadily intensify as it approaches Cuba. And once it leaves Cuba, it's going to be all systems go, rapid intensification, because it does look like the system is kind of beginning to get a bit more vertically stacked. Beginning to get a bit more vertically stacked, as you can see here, and this could allow to kind of more rapid intensification, if you like. And if we just take a look at what maybe it found in the actual storm, this is interesting. This is the recon data. You can see here pressure is kind of dropping a little bit, as you can see this when they went through the core of the storm, and then the flight level wind dropped as they went through the core of the storm, and it looks like they're kind of finding winds around 50 knots at the moment. But moving on now, this is the kind of the track guidance, as you can see here. And yesterday there was a bit more uncertainty. Now the models have really converged. The low-level center kind of forming. Now that we know where Ida really is, there might be a bit more uncertainty, a few more shifts in where the center exactly is. But now that we know where it is, the models really kind of have converged with a landfall over western Cuba, and you can see there is not a lot of spread here. This means that there is fairly high certainty that will either make landfall somewhere kind of around this western cluster, that's more along the central Louisiana coast, or maybe somewhere closer kind of New Orleans on that eastern cluster, and that's likely to make a turn towards the north as high pressure moves away and allows it to come into this area. So if you are in maybe kind of the upper Texas coast, like you were kind of under fire a few days ago, now you don't really need to worry. But basically anywhere kind of along here is now likely to see impacts from this storm, and anywhere kind of in this region is likely to see some sort of landfall from what will be Hurricane Ida. Looking at the intensity forecast for the GFS, you can see here, same thing here, likely to make landfall somewhere around here. You can see most of the track guidance in here. There are a few outliers at the moment, but not really anything noteworthy. And you can see all the intensity guidance is fairly certain. It is likely to kind of be somewhere between this strength. There are a few I can just about see getting even lower. I personally think will be kind of on the lower end of this. I don't think that the model is going to handle the rapid intensification too well, but we kind of have a good idea of where the track is going to be. Now you can see intensification guidance, intensity guidance. I mean, you can see now that all models essentially are now expecting at least a category 1 at landfall, and now most of those are expecting at least a category 2. This is a big shift up from yesterday, and now even if maybe like 4 or 5 are expecting a category 3. Again, like I just said, I'm not sure if the models are handling rapid intensification too well. I think we could potentially see category 4 status being reached. That's my opinion, but listen to the NHC most of all. And if we look into the models a little bit, this is a GFS. You can see here, this is where the storm is now. We've got, like I kind of said, the moisture is kind of off to this side, with kind of, that's why we have a kind of a lack of thunderstorms over here. But there is now kind of outflow kind of expanding nicely. But sorry, got a little bit off track there, but you can see that the moisture kind of isn't really going to be a problem. We have a nice kind of bubble of moisture kind of dragged up as it goes over Cuba, and then it kind of creates its own kind of bubble of moisture like here, allowing to regenerate those thunderstorms, making a landfall to a strong hurricane, as you can see on the run, almost sub 950 millibars. So this could be a very dangerous storm. You can see plenty of moisture here, definitely not a worry. Looks like some dry air is trying to get dragged in, but I really wouldn't be worrying about that in terms of a limiting factor of the storm. Unfortunately, that is the case, but we are looking at now a system which can easily kind of produce thunderstorms. Dry air not going to be an issue here. You can see same thing in terms of kind of outflow and upper level winds. You can see we've got lots of divergence and upper level high around here, and then it kind of outflow around here. You can see that the storm's track is kind of in this direction like this, and you can see the upper level flow just ahead of the storm is kind of aligned in the same way. This means that there shouldn't be too much shear in the long run. If I run it forward, you can see that the storm kind of creates its own outflow. There was a bit of kind of uncertainty, there still is, about what the storm in the Eastern Pacific Nora was going to do, because that could have outflow. That was looking like it was going to push kind of into this area. It could have a limiting factor on the shear, but you can see watch the interaction that kind of happens in this region, and as that is the outflow from Ida kind of pushes that away, and like you can see running through there, and this is going to create its own kind of high in the upper levels at 200 millibars, outflow pushing out like that, divergence at the upper levels kind of creating its own high like you can see here, underneath the high, so low shear. That's another thing which is looking concerning regarding the intensity. So lots of moisture for easy thunderstorm development, low shear, and like I said, very, very warm sea surface temperatures, allowing for rapid intensification. Taking a look at the kind of the steering elements, you can see we have this long kind of ridge like this, those kind of high pressure contours extending into this way, and you can see we have above average height out here, that strong ridge. This is going to be steering the storm straight into those warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Like I said, there's not really any kind of uncertainty on whether it's going to go into the Gulf of Mexico. This is going to be steering it in as we track forward on here. What might be an influence is that this high kind of starts to get eroded by this kind of low pressure system up here, and as I run through that, gets kind of erodes this ridge starts to weaken, it pulls back in kind of a way, and that is going to mean that this Ida takes a turn towards the north and it curves around instead of maybe having a landfall a bit further west. There still could be some kind of last minute changes regarding this interaction, because like a small change could mean that maybe we have a further track like this, a further track like this, but there isn't too much uncertainty regarding this anymore. We are expected to see Louisiana landfall. Now, all that being said, we need to look at some of the scenarios, and the last HWRF model, which is a good hurricane run, just came in, and that was kind of showing we've got the recon now from the last, and the center of, so we've got recon kind of from the last 24 hours or so, which has helped this, and we've had the center form, so this model is kind of increasing in its reliability. And as you can see, it's basically its current location, which is kind of here, was shown, has a central pressure of 1001 millibars, like shown on the NHC forecast. And as you can see here, this model seems to be handling this system, sorry, not the system, this storm fairly well. And you can see it does forecast some in quite quick intensification actually, and I definitely could see this being possible, especially if we just had the mid-level center and low-level center align. This could allow for kind of some fairly rapid development by the time it reaches Cuba, could give it a head start in a way on some intensity. It kind of weakens it a little bit. We already on this model kind of start to see some bowing features showing it's getting ready for a spell of rapid intensification. And as you can see here, rapidly intensifies below 160, below 150 on this run, and by the point it reaches the Louisiana coast, this is the Louisiana coast here, is definitely a very strong major hurricane, category 4 hurricane, very strong eye wall. And it's going to be pushing a lot of water onshore, this whole kind of like dome of water. This will kind of be offshore, so not as much storm surge, but this will be onshore. So especially if you're east of the center, like to see a lot of storm surge as this moves on land here. Actually, on this latest model run, which I haven't actually looked at yet, goes below 940 millibars. This is very, very concerning. We could be seeing a category 4 hurricane, possibly a high-end category 4 hurricane making landfall. I am definitely very concerned at the moment. If we look at the wind on this run, you can see 130 knots. Yep, so 121 knots. That would be a kind of strong category 4. And if we look at some of the forecast satellite, you can see this would be a very strong hurricane. So the latest models in, sorry, I'm just a bit kind of uncertain in my words, sorry, this has just come in, but the latest model in shows a very strong hurricane making landfall, and this is one scenario, but it's now quite a likely scenario in my opinion. I think this is more likely than maybe like a category 2 or category 3 hurricane, just because of how warm and in this ocean is and how favorable the environment is. And this is quite concerning kind of to talk about. If I just quickly go back to the recon mission, I'm interested to see what's happening there. Sorry, let me just find it. Okay. I'm interested to see what's going on with that recon mission, if they found kind of anything else. Not really, but this is definitely defined circulation and a strengthening storm. So overall, let me just go back to the NHC forecast. If you are anywhere in kind of these regions, sorry about this, if you're anywhere in kind of that pink zone, get your plan ready. Now it is the time to get ready. Now it is the time to leave, to evacuate. So this is a very major impact event, and thank you for watching.